What's up, family? Welcome to the channel. Today I want to talk about something that after my divorce I had to deal with. The topic is going to be pretty much about child support. And I think that there might be men and some women, but most of this is going to pertain to men who may not have had to go through this yet. You may be going through it now, and or you may have to go through it in the future. And I just want to give a little insight into some things that I learned about it myself. When we got divorced, at first I wasn't put on any type of child support. That came later. At the time of the divorce, my ex, realized that I was a good father and would take care of my kids to the best of my ability. And we sort of just had an unwritten agreement as to how we was gonna do things. Of course, as time goes on and other relationships come into the picture, and I'm not saying this happened. I'm speaking what I believe. As she became closer and closer to uniting in a relationship, of course, the rules are going to change. Now, again, I can't prove that that happened, but okay. So I'm chilling on the route, and out the blue, I get a phone call from the child support services. Now, all I have two children. Both of my children came from my marriage. I have no children outside of my marriage. So I was not familiar with the child support ways. I had heard, like most people, that child support will break you through the coals. And I had a lot of friends that was, so thankful that they only had 2 or 3 more years of paying child support and their child would be 18 because of how much money they had to pay. So I heard a lot of the horror stories of child support versus anything firsthand. So I didn't really have a clue. So when they initially called me, of course, my ex is the one who obviously went down and filed or whatever the paperwork to get the ball rolling. When they initially called me, the amount that they told me I would have to pay was at that time over $1,000 a month on the original, on what they originally said. Well, right at it was like 966, and then I had to keep the kids on my insurance, which they already were. But then I had to keep the kids on mine, and mind y'all, this is what 7, 8 years ago. I had to keep the kids on my insurance, so about a little over $1,000 a month. And I'm thinking in my mind, there is no way. And I think this is the part where a lot of men, and to a small degree, maybe women who are put on child support, but again, this was mostly going to go to men. This is where a lot of men will get salty. It's not that we don't want our kids to be taken care of. And I think a lot of times that's how men see it. That, you know, it doesn't cost this amount of money to take care of two kids. That's kind of how we look at it, right? So we're gonna say, it don't cost $1,000 a month to take care of two kids. It may only, in our mind, $400 or $500 a month. That's kind of, something like that. Maybe 600, but definitely not $1,000, $1,200. And the way that most courts look at it, the way child support is set up, it's not just set up for the support. It is for the support of the child, but not just in the ways that we would look at it. In other words, where the children stay is a part of that. So obviously that amount is going to be elevated because they are including that whoever gets the child support is able to take a portion of that and go towards their transportation, go towards their living, their lodging. See what I mean? And so obviously when you put all that together, that number will go up. But the reason why men get salty is because most of the time, in order for that to happen, the court system has to take, like if you get paid once a week, 1 week out of the month is going to go toward child support. If most people is already living, you've already gone through a divorce, you're trying to survive, you're trying to get back on your feet, you're trying to recuperate, you're trying to, the funds is tight, and that's on both sides. So I'm not just saying the one that has to pay has it any less or better than the one that don't have to. I'm not saying that everybody has to. Everybody has to do what they have to do. But when you're giving a fourth of your check over to someone else, that means now your lifestyle has to be based on the remaining 3 checks that you make. Let's just say that you get paid once a week. And that's why a lot of men fight so hard against the child support system. It's not that they don't want to take care of their children. I think sometimes a lot of people get it twisted because you want to jump up and say, well, it's your kids, you might as well take care of them. Well, they don't want it, they don't really want to have to pay for all the extra stuff that somebody's able to do with the money. So in my situation, we ended up modifying the agreement, which they allow you to do. If both parties agree, you can modify that agreement higher. Nobody's going to really do that, or lower, which in most cases, that's what they'll do. You come up with some type of an agreement, and then, again, the woman will agree, okay, I'll take this instead of that, blah, 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 blah. So we was able to modify mine's down to a lower amount, something that was a little more feasible for me to be able to handle. Now, later on my journey, when it came time for my oldest to come off, because I never really went and looked up, like I said, I never had no children outside of the ones that was in my marriage. Nobody ever schooled me. I didn't know. I just thought when they tell you the amount, that's the amount. Whatever you modify it to, okay, that's the amount. I didn't know that there was a possibility of something else. So I later find out after my oldest, it was time for her to come off. There was a couple of challenges there. So I went down there and started doing my own research. And I found out, and I'm going to paraphrase how this works. The men who are paying the most, which in that case would have been me if it would have not have been modified, they would have took a whole fourth of my monthly pay. The men who are paying that amount, it's because the court system either believes or it can be proven that you do not have your children a certain amount of times overnight per month. See, I was having my kids 3 or 4 days a week, but I was taking them back at like 10:30 at night. So I'll pick them up when I got off work. 10:30 at night, I would take them back. The courts don't recognize that. If it's not an overnight stay between 8 to 11 times a month, they're pretty much going to say that the lady is doing everything. It don't matter if you fed them. It don't matter. It don't matter what you did when they was with you. It don't matter if they use your internet. That they do not take that into consideration. In most states now, if those children or the child did not stay overnight at least 8 times a month, 8 to 11 times a month, the court system hits you with the full Monty. You get hit with the full thing because it is saying that in most cases, the lady is doing it all, so make him pay. And that's the part I didn't know. So when I realized what it was, I just started making sure that my kids was able to stay overnight 2 or 3 times a week. Because I didn't, I mean, it was, we had some transportation situations that had to be worked out. But as far as my kids being able to stay overnight, I didn't have a problem with it. And I think most fathers, if they're in the same city, probably not going to have a problem with it. By me bringing that to the table, and then when they adjusted the amount, the court itself, not through a modification, when you can prove that you have your kids overnight 8 to 11 times, just to say 9 nights out of the month, because it has to equal up to so many nights a year. That's kind of what they go by. It's so many nights a year that it has to equal up to. So between 8 and 11, you'll hit that number. That thing will come. It'll come all the way. It'll cut probably less than half of what the original amount was, because they see now you're working together. So both of them have shared expenses. So they just calculate by how much you make, how much she make, how much they think it takes for the children to be able to survive. What will it take to raise a child? They do all the math, and then the remaining portion you will have to pay. So there's a couple of things that I would say if you're in a position to, if you're going through the child support, or maybe future you may have to go through it. If at all possible, try to keep your kids overnight 3 nights a week. 2 nights a week minimum to try to hit that 8 mark. 3 nights a week preferably. If you can keep your kids overnight 3 nights a week, or maybe a week on week, or whatever will work, if at all possible. So that's one thing. And then number two, depending on how much, if your ex-wife or girlfriend or whoever, if you're the mother of your child, depending on how much she makes, will also determine, because they're gonna. And the lady even told me, she said, we don't care about you or her. Our concern is the child. So the state already has a number that they say it takes to raise a child, pretty much, as far as child support goes. So let's just say that your girlfriend or ex-wife didn't work at all, you're gonna carry a big chunk of that. If she worked the job, and then they're gonna calculate the difference between y'all's pay, and then whoever obviously makes the most, they have the higher burden to carry. But if you can have your children, like I said, 2 to 3 nights a week, or 1 week on, 1 week off, or however that work, or all through the summer, and that number can still balance out to the same, you'll be in way better shape. And I'm not saying this to try to get over on the system. I'm just saying I didn't have this information. I didn't have this knowledge. I know, like I said, all I heard was child support is the words. Oh my God, I gotta pay child support. So and so is trying to get out of paying child support. So and so owe $20,000 in child support. So when they told me the number, I was just like, this is gonna be crazy. I gotta figure out how to do it. And I thought it was just done one way. But in the state of North Carolina, there's a plan A and there's a plan B. And depending on, like I said, I believe A is the one where pretty much the kids don't stay overnight with you at all. And I believe B is the one that's a little more like they stay. It ain't even got to be 50-50. It just has to be once you hit a certain number a month, that's when it will bring that number way down. So hopefully this helps somebody. Like I said, I didn't know. I mean, I was paying, I don't know, maybe a year or two into it before it kicked in, where I had to do my own research and realize what was going on. But what's y'all experiences, those who have had to pay child support, and maybe you wasn't able to have your kids for whatever reason overnight? Talk about it in the comments. Let's help one another, and y'all be blessed.